ask you something?
I can't promise I'll answer.
Right, that's exactly what I meant. Are you allowed to speak along the way? I was thinking there might be rules.
Let me put it this way. Very few make it all the way without uttering a word. People are overcome with a strange and sudden need to confess on these trips. And not all of it can be said to be of great rhetorical quality. But do carry on merrily. Just don't believe you are going to tell me something I haven't heard before.
I will tentatively divide my tale into 5 randomly chosen incidents over a 12-year period.
So I'm standing here holding this jack. Crap's not working. Do you have a jack I could borrow?
No, I'm sorry.
No?
No.
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 Ah. That's odd. I thought everyone had a jack.
I don't...
Perhaps you could have a look at my car?
Well, I don't have to have a look at your car. Do is look at your jack. See, it's broken. There.
So, what's a person like me supposed to do?
Well, I suppose I could drive over to Sonny's repair shop and call for roadside assistance. It's about 5 miles from here.
What kind of repair shop is it?
Sonny's a blacksmith, very good one.
Blacksmith. Well, maybe this Sonny can repair the jack.
You'd have to talk to Sonny about that.
Perhaps I could entice you to drive me there? Please? Oops. That was a mistake.
Mistake.
Me getting in this car with you. What was it one's mother used to say about not getting into cars with strangers?
Well, I wouldn't know what your mother said.
You might as well be a serial killer. I'm sorry, but you do kind of look like one.
Would you like me to drive you back to your car?
No. I can take care of myself. I'm sorry. Were you offended that I called you a serial killer?
No. It's of absolutely no importance to me.
Maybe it's just the van. It's the kind one might expect to be kidnapped in, used to transport corpses. But if you really were a serial killer, I guess the easiest thing would be just to bury my body back up there by those trees. But you'd have to remember to dig 6 feet down so the foxes couldn't dig up my grave. What would I do? What would I do to keep you from getting away with it? Oh, of course. I just pick up that jack and hit you over the head with it. A jack like that could do quite a bit of damage, don't you think?
I'm not a medical examiner.
Do quite a lot of damage.
Don't forget this. Good luck with Sonny.
Would it be too much to ask for you to drive me back? If Sonny's as fast as you say he is?
I'm sure Sonny's perfectly capable of giving you a lift back to you.
As I told you before, I don't like driving with strangers.
I'm just as much of a stranger as Sonny is.
Oh, we're getting along just fine. But I'll just go speak to Sonny. Just take a moment.
Sonny,
Hi, Jack.
how's it going?
Well, I was working on Miller's tractor, but this lady's been really persistent.
You don't say.
Big mistake. The reason serial killers can roam around free in our country is that they have no connection between themselves and their victims. So, you just made a big mistake letting Sonny see the two of us together.
Honestly, I have more important things to be doing with my life. Messing around with this crap.
You said he was really good.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Sonny was just distracted by your goddamn blabbering. Now I have to go. I have an appointment.
Appointment? What appointment?
That's none of your goddamn business now, is it?
You're not just gonna leave me here.
In fact, yes, that is kind of what I was thinking. I'm sure there'll be another serial killer passing by who can give you a lift back to Sonny's. That is, unless he decides to kill you first.
Even if I was to beg you to drive me back. The last time. Pretty please. You know, I take it all back. What I said earlier about you looking like a serial killer? No, no, no. You don't have the disposition for that sort of thing. You're way too much of a wimp to murder anyone.
Oh dear, you are a dangerous man. Smacked her with the jack, did you? Honestly, I've heard of more murders than I can count. And by the way, what does this ridiculous man have to do with anything?
It's Glenn Gould, one of the greatest piano players of our time. He represents art.
So, a jack in the face of an admittedly unbearable lady was great art. Is that what I'm to make of it?
Dear Mr. Verge, please give me a chance to cast some supplemental light on the story of the Jack. The old cathedrals often have sublime artworks hidden away in the darkest corners for only God to see, or whatever one feels like calling the great architect behind it all. The same goes for murder. When I say cathedrals, it is first and foremost the Gothic buildings we admire. Here, elegant pointed arches have replaced the earlier, more primitive, rounded arches. The art of engineering is first and foremost about statics. That is, so things remain standing in spite of the various forces that impact the buildings. In this way, the pointed arch created a possibility to build much higher and with much more light, but most importantly, with less use of material. I often say that the material does the work. In other words, it has a kind of will of its own, and that by following it, the result will be the most exquisite.
So the material was the jack, and it jumped into the lady's face on its own.
Art is many things.
Very convenient and unusual in the pile of bad excuses. But all of that is of no interest whatsoever unless you are an engineer.
I am an engineer. My mother was of the opinion that becoming an engineer was the more financially viable choice. But my really big dream was to become an architect. Right before The Lady and the Jack, I purchased a building lot, and since I was my own developer due to a substantial inheritance, no one could keep me from drawing up my own plans for my own house.
Engineer or architect? What I see is an OCD patient in full bloom. Ordnungszwang, Jack, to use a good German word.
Yes, perhaps it is, in any case, true that I suffered from compulsions as a child. I was completely hysterical about cleaning and could never leave a room that wasn't perfectly neat and clean, a standard that was difficult to maintain in the walk-in freezer.
The walk-in freezer?
The walk-in freezer on Prospect Avenue. The sign had been broken for forever, so no one really knew what the name of the street was. I bought the pizzas from the former owner of the walk-in freezer. He claimed it was a great deal. Of course, I never managed to sell them, so it all became too much for me. I only ate one of those shitty pizzas.
Pizza, pizza, maresciallo, fammelo sempre mangiare.
And then there was a door to another room, which I never managed to open.